Hi there, Scott Hamilton, back with another podcast review for your ears. Going to be talking about 1990's Total Recall. Won't get too deep into this because I think everybody's seen this movie. And probably, what was the 2012 version with Colin Farrell? Really bad idea. It just proves that there was something special about this movie. Wasn't easy to pull off. Got the 4K edition back, I think Black Friday. It was pretty cheap. And finally got a chance to sit down and watch it. And it's one of my all-time favorite Schwarzenegger movies. It's one of my all-time favorite bizarre science fiction movies. One of my favorite Verhoeven movies. Paul Verhoeven, the director. Was made for anywhere between $50 and $90 million, grossed $261 million in its original run, and now it's made them buku-doodles of money since. It's one of the more intelligent Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. He gets to do some decent acting in the movie, but take him out of the movie, it would still be a great flick. When you watch some of the extras, it's interesting that they had somebody completely different in mind for it. They wanted a nerdy type guy who could become kind of a superhero, and Richard Dreyfuss was up for the role. David Cronenberg was originally going to direct the movie, and his version was so different, they thought about using it for a sequel. Minority Report was also supposed to be a sequel, but then they made it a separate standalone movie. They've just not really been able to, and I don't know why anybody tried to remake it, and they did, and I watched it not too long ago. It just kind of lays there. I mean, it's got some great action scenes. It's a lot of CG, and they changed some things, and I don't think they I like the way this story turns out. It turns out that they changed some things while they were making the movie, like the whole idea of the terraforming thing when they were writing the script wasn't in there originally. I'm not getting into too many spoilers, but that is pretty cool. Now, the biggest thing about the movie is it a real or is it a dream? The director likes to think of it as a dream because that's not what the audience wants. The audience wants the adventure story that has the happy ending. But if you go back to an earlier part of the movie when they say things like, oh, blue sky on Mars, as he's, picks up the tape that he's going to put in his brain, and seeing pictures of Rachel Ticotin, the actress who plays Maria, what was her name? Yeah. That he meets in all this stuff. I mean, the guy that runs Recall basically runs him through everything that's going to happen in the entire movie, and that's exactly what happens in the movie. So it's pretty obvious that everything's a dream, but it can work both ways. And with Arnold Schwarzenegger being who he is, you believe that he could have pulled off all those things, They do a lot of practical effects. There were some things they couldn't do, and some of those things show their age on a 4K release. But for the most part, the masks and the prosthetics and check out Dean Norris. Yeah, the sheriff from Breaking Bad. He's Tony with the big thing over his one side of his face, the mutant on Mars. Hard to recognize him. He was young, but when he talks, you can tell it's him. Ronnie Cox is the bad guy. Sharon Stone is in this, Michael Ironside. You got a great cast. You got Paul Verhoeven working at the height of his powers. This is in the same few years where he churned out RoboCop and Starship Troopers and this, and he was on fire at the time. Some of the blue screen, green screen, I guess it was blue screen back then. Maybe we had, by 1990 had green screen. Some of that stuff didn't hold up as well, but they've done a good job with the remaster. This was a 4K native transfer from the original negative, and it's not mind-blowing like I recently watched the Akira restoration, it just jumps off the screen. This looks like the movie. This looks like it did when I saw it in the movie theater in 1990. I have seen Total Recall a lot of times, and this is by far the best time it looked. But it doesn't jump out at you like a 2022 film, a Shang-Chi, an Eternals, or whatever, a big-budget movie on 4K. But then again, it's not supposed to. It looks like it did, and it looks great. Tiny bit of film grain because it was actually filmed on film back in the day. And like I said, most of the special effects look great. The HDR pass, excellent. I mean, when they go to Mars, the reds were crushed when we had VHS and DVD. Blu-ray, they look better, but 4K really smooths out all the different reds and shadows, and it just looks amazing. But again, adjust your expectations. The soundtrack is a new Dolby Atmos soundtrack, and it's better than any. It still sounds a little thin compared to modern soundtracks, but it's very active in the Atmos matrix, if you will, and sounds great. And watching it again, it's been a few years since I've seen the movie. It's just well made. It's Paul Verhoeven. It's incredibly violent in places. He does good to dance around the fact that Arnold wasn't as accomplished an actor as he became. I mean, when he looks at Sharon Stone and says, you're the only one for me, baby. It's the best he could do at the time. And it's fine. I mean, it works within the movie because he's playing a construction worker and then something happens. But anyway, everybody else does a great job. The movie still is amazing. It feels a tad long, but I don't know what I would take out of it. It just has a lot of story to get to, and the ending and some of the prosthetics and some of the animatronic heads they used doesn't look as good as some of the things we do now, but again, they were doing the best they could. Movie won an Academy Award for special effects and deserved it. I mean, it was a game changer in that the company was an independent company, Carol Co. You should go get into the details of that company, either on the Wikipedia or there's a great documentary on the 4K set of this. You get the 4K, the Blu-ray, and a disc of extras, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a steelbook out there that's available, and I think it was like $13.99. It's more than worth it for the movie. But if you're not into the extras, it's definitely worth it for the soundtrack and the video. But the extras, when they got into what Carol Co. Pictures, which is a name they just made up, did and how it changed things in the industry. It's why we have some of the independent films that we have today, well, that we had a few years ago. COVID's kind of changed things, and you either have to be a giantly big-budgeted movie or a tiny-budget movie to get a release, it seems like. This was very violent. It came out at a time where there were a bunch of violent movies, so it was picked on for that. It was picked on for colonialism and sexism, although I'm sorry, when you have a little person, female prostitute, jump up on a bar with a machine gun and kill all the guys, it's not a very sexist movie. I think that was a great scene. So there's a few things in it that are a little dated, but some of the sci-fi stuff still holds up today. Some of the special effects still hold up today. The spaceship stuff, the outdoor scenes, if they're not trying to do green screen stuff, look great still. Highly recommended. If you've never seen it, which I find that hard to believe, go see Total Recall immediately, and don't bother with the Colin Farrell version. Well, at least until you've seen this. And if you've got the capabilities to watch it in 4K with some kind of HDR and some kind of Dolby Surround, it's more than worth it to pick up the upgrade. It's definitely worth it. Great movie, good Schwarzenegger movie. All in all, it's Total Recall. Scott Hamilton, I'm ROCKFILE. Thank you for checking this out. Links below, more podcasts to come, more details about what I'm doing on Patreon and more. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening.